Alright, welcome back. Today we are doing our final lesson in this unit on page 67, proving quadrilaterals are ... Alright, so on page 67, our objective for today is to use properties of quadrilaterals to prove a quadrilateral is a specific type of quadrilateral. All right, so how to prove a quadrilateral is a trapezoid. This one's easy. There's only one way to prove this. Prove one pair of sides parallel. How to prove a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid. One, prove it is a trapezoid first. And prove the non-parallel sides are congruent. So and or prove diagonals are congruent. Okay, so in order to prove that a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid, we first need to prove it is a trapezoid, and then we also either need to prove that the non-parallel sides are congruent or that the diagonals are congruent. How to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. There are a total of 6 different ways to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. 1. Prove it by definition. Prove 2 pairs of opposite sides are parallel. Or prove by the properties. So prove two pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Or you can mix it up a little bit and combine a property with a definition. Prove one pair of opposite sides are congruent and parallel. So it's kind of like a mix-up of 1 and 2. All right. Now these next ones kind of lead you to proving it by definition, but they're sufficient to do them on their own. So 4, you can prove opposite angles congruent, or prove consecutive angles supplementary. And really, you'd have to kind of, if you knew consecutive angles were supplementary, so if you knew, all right, if you knew that this angle right here and this angle right here added up to 180, the next step would be to say that these two lines are parallel. So it's kind of the same as 1, but it's enough to do on its own. And the last one is to prove that the diagonals bisect each other.
Andrea Foster, please go to Patriot Hall. Andrea Foster, please go to Patriot Hall.
Next, we're going to discuss how to prove a quadrilateral is a rectangle. Okay, the first thing you have to do when proving that a quadrilateral is a rectangle is first establish that it is a parallelogram. So first prove that the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. And then you have to do one of these two things. Or one of these three things. Sorry, I'm going to squeak them in here. Prove all angles congruent, or just prove consecutive angles congruent. Okay, so that would be enough. Let me write up this word, consecutive. That would be enough, okay? Or B, kind of along the same lines. Prove one angle is 90 degrees. Or, I'm really getting this in here, or prove that the diagonals are congruent. Okay, or prove that diagonals are congruent. So first do the one and then choose one of these three to do afterwards. On the next page, we have to prove that a quadrilateral is a rhombus. how to prove that a quadrilateral is a rhombus. So first, just like the rectangle, must prove that it is a parallelogram. That's first. And you have to do one of these 4 things after that. You can prove it by definition, that all sides are congruent. Or, kind of along the same idea, prove consecutive sides congruent. That would be enough because that would imply that all sides are congruent. Or prove that the diagonals are perpendicular. Or prove the diagonals bisect the angles. All right, how to prove that a quadrilateral is a square. And this one's the hardest to prove because you must do 3 things. You must prove that it is a parallelogram and a rectangle and a rhombus. So you have to do all 3 of these things. Let's scroll this up a little bit. All right. You have to prove all 3 of these things. So you have to go back and prove that it's a parallelogram, that it's a rectangle, and that it is a rhombus. And I finished that in under 15 minutes. Not bad for a ton of notes. So come ready tomorrow to prove that quadrilaterals are a special type of parallelogram, or a special type of rectangle, or rhombus, or isosceles trapezoid. That's what we will be working on tomorrow in class.